The Walking Dead fans, it finally happened. Rick's final episode, the episode that AMC certainly hoped we were anticipating, but I personally was dreading just a little bit. I'm Terry Schwartz, this is Laura Prudhomme, and we are talking full spoilers for what comes after. But it should be noted that we are in a unique position because we have not seen what comes after what comes after.
Right.
We got this episode in advance. We are talking about through the episode on its own, which I think is important regardless of anything that Andrew Lincoln inevitably will say on Talking Dead or in any interviews after the fact, because I think that that is going to be the big question after this episode. Like, what's the deal, Andrew Lincoln?
What does come after Andrew Lincoln? Where are you going?
So let's talk about it. This episode has been touted as Rick's last episode, but obviously it ends with him not dead. And anytime you don't kill a character as important as Rick Grimes, that leaves open the opportunity for more, for him to return, for anything more.
And he said that, I think, when they made the official announcement at Comic-Con, it was like, my journey with Rick Grimes may not be over, which kind of, I think, made us all second guess whether he'd be dying.
So what do you think about the way that they handled his final episode?
I was very mad at it because it just feels like Glenn and the dumpster all over again. It's this kind of fake out. All of the other characters think he's dead. The audience knows better. So, you know, even if he comes back in a couple seasons, there's kind of the expectation, I guess, that, like, why wouldn't he come back sooner? Like, where are they taking him that he could not make his way back to his loved ones? Like, a helicopter can't travel that far, right? Like,
well, it depends how many pit stops it takes for gas or whatever helicopters take.
Guess. But you'd feel like Rick Grimes, having been the guy who never gives up, why wouldn't he try and make his way back if we're doing a time jump that's, 5 years in
or
the
however
future?
long it is. Yeah, I also was really frustrated like this. I also felt similar to, the fake out with Glenn a couple seasons back. What was that, season 7, season 6, where we thought that we knew Glenn was going to die because it happens in the comics, or maybe they were going to course correct, and then they kept teasing us all season, and this definitely, AMC was leaning so hard on this fact. We were frustrated last week with that cliffhanger when we assumed that Rick wouldn't actually die that way. And to me, I think my biggest frustration is it didn't feel like this move was done in the service of story. It was done in the service of things outside of the show's control, which is Andrew Lincoln wanting to not be on the show for full seasons anymore for, his own reasons. And because of that, like, even though they tied up all their loose ends, like, I get why everyone would think he was dead, even if they couldn't find the body. They have this time jump to say that even though he seemingly is alive, like, life has gone on or whatever way without him, but it still just isn't satisfying. And I, with the jump forward, with revealing that Judith is older now, which is like cool, great, exciting to see these characters at a different point in their lives, like, I still looked at it and think about the greater context of people dropping off in viewership, not speaking for them, but like, what would encourage them to keep watching after this point in time, to be engaged with a whole new generation of version of these characters. I don't know, like...
It feels like a natural stopping point, which will not help the erosion of viewers. I'm sure a bunch of people will tune in to see how they tie it up. Does Rick die? But afterwards, do we care? I'm not sure that we do. And I feel like if they hadn't killed Carl, and it had been Carl in the future rather than Judith, we would have had more of that emotional connection to him.
Yeah, I mean, Judith was kind of like, she's adorable, but she was like a MacGuffin for many seasons, right? Like, she was like a character who was there to be saved. She had zero personality. Now we've seen her a little bit older, before the time jump, I'm saying, but I still don't really have an emotional attachment to her.
She was like a baby.
And it was nice to remind us, and because we should talk about sort of what comes before, what comes after. I'm going to keep making that pun the whole time. But Shane reminding us that it's actually Shane's child with Lori that Rick chose to raise, and now it'll be Michonne choosing to raise this child, and like this whole idea that this has become his family, even if it isn't his, his blood family. But let's talk about sort of the three big flashbacks that we knew were coming. We saw Shane again. We saw Herschel again. R.I.P. Scott Wilson. Very sad.
Completely, like, nothing nothing else made me emotional in the episode apart
Beyond
from
that.
seeing Scott Wilson, because obviously he did pass away after filming this, and it was just a really beautiful kind of heartfelt moment. I was like, God damn you guys.
So that was your favorite. My favorite was actually the Sasha one, specifically because of the way that conversation tied into the end of the episode and Rick making his choice. Like, I really appreciated the parallels between Sasha deciding it was time for her to, not continue living because her family is in a good place and it will benefit their family. And we see Rick make that exact same choice at the end. And I'm getting chills thinking about it. I thought that was very moving. But what did you think about the Shane flashback?
I mean, it was kind of the fun, like, nod to poor Judith not actually being Rick's, and I thought that was it was a good way to kind of tie it back. There were a lot of kind of callbacks to even this series premiere in, the thematic, the elements, the visuals of it.
The bridge.
The walking, the horse, never trust horses in The Walking Dead. I thought that the parallels that they chose to include were a little on the nose, but they worked for a kind of farewell for Rick.
The thing that I really liked about the Shane sequence as well was how much it reminded me of how far we've come. It made me a bit nostalgic for that Frank Darabont first season when I was like, oh my gosh, how different the circumstances were, even when Rick goes up and sees the doors again that don't open dead inside. I was like, remember the horror we felt. Like, remember Rick before he knew what was happening. Like, I thought those were really effective, though more than making me want to continue watching the season, it made me want to go back and rewatch those, that first season
Remember that
again.
Atmosphere, that sense of dread.
Exactly. So I thought in those ways it was effective as a final episode for Rick, but I still just do feel, even though I was predicting he wouldn't actually die, like, it just feels a bit, not like a shortcut, but like it's shortchanging us as the audience.
And I feel like AMC was kind of between a rock and a hard place because he wanted out.
And I didn't want Rick to die. I wanted him to stay on the show, for the record.
I wanted him to die. Like, if you're going to do it and you're going to write him off, like, have the courage of your convictions and, like, kill him. Don't, like, have your cake and eat it. Like, he could come back at some other point when the ratings get really bad and we need to, like, bring him back. Like, just have the balls to kill him, have his sacrifice mean something. Don't, like, leave yourself that little narrative loophole where you can bring him back, because I think, we've been with him since, 8 years now. Like, give us that catharsis.
I will say, so we were frustrated last week with sort of the final conversation between Daryl and Rick. I was almost saying Norman. I was like, that's not the right person. Kind of. Yeah. And the one thing that I thought, given that they didn't have another conversation here, and that Rick and Michonne didn't have another conversation, is like, you don't choose when death happens, right? And so I thought that was kind of fitting. Though, of course, I would have loved a big dramatic thing. But I'm glad that they all got to see him and they got to have that moment still at the end. And then the other quick thing I'll say before we talk about the Jadis of it all is, in the helicopters, is the Negan stuff with Maggie. I really appreciated how that played out and her choice not to go down that path. Like we know in the comics, Negan is still around. I did have to do a double take. I rewound the episode and watched it again because there's that final close-up of him and our screener was very dark. And I was like, is this genuine or is this a trick for him to stay alive? And it is genuine.
It's
and
so
I think
genuine. He's so broken at this point.
Right. That makes me excited about the Negan we will meet.
And I feel like that's how they had to go with him. Like if we knew that he was going to stay on the show and that Maggie, for whatever reason, wasn't going to kill him, like it would have to be that kind of emotional, like, I see that you're broken, that it's a worse punishment to keep you alive than to give you the satisfaction of dying right now. Like it was emotional. That scene between them was fantastic. Both Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Lauren Cohan.
And you realize he's antagonizing her, and she realizes he's antagonizing her.
Please kill me. It was very effective and like a nice kind of punctuation point for that part of the story.
Yes. Now, okay, before we wrap up this episode, obviously a big episode, but the one thing that I wonder if we will get a closure for this season is what is up with the AB helicopter people.
I know, it's clearly not the Whisperers. I keep on guessing the Whisperers, and it's not the Whisperers, but...
What is up? Do you think the show will, can the show answer that without us finding out what the deal is with Rick and whether, if he comes back at any point in time?
That's the key question. I don't know, because I know that Angela Kang has said that we will get more information and kind of backstory on the helicopters this season, but I don't know if this counted as that or whether something down the line.
I'm very confused. And why is Rick a B? Because we were thinking alpha, beta.
Yeah.
I don't know. If anyone has any theories, I definitely want to hear them more for my own sense of closure and understanding. I think there's a lot to unpack with that. And And I hope that it's something like The Wolves from years back, where it is something that's dragged out. But it is, again, like it goes back to sort of the frustration about us, like having Rick leave in this way and knowing that it's such a big tease. But if the show is smart, it won't give us the answers immediately because, though I guess the characters on the show don't know that Rick is still alive, so they wouldn't know to go after him if that was happening.
I guess Gabriel knows about the helicopters at least.
Yes.
So there's that.
There's something. Maybe it'll be a Fear the Walking Dead crossover. Who knows? So that's what we thought about this episode, but we want to know what you think in the comments. Do you think that this was a fitting farewell to Rick Grimes, or were you as frustrated as we were about the way that it kind of sort of said goodbye to him? We would love to know, and you definitely will have plenty more Walking Dead coverage coming in the coming weeks. But in the meantime, check out the cast saying goodbye to Andrew Lincoln, and also Andy and the rest of the cast doing their best Negan impressions. For all things The Walking Dead, be sure to like and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.